Welcome back, Flyers Nitty Gritty fans, to Getting Gritty with It with your host, Yariv, Wolok, my partner in crime, Vasili Gianarakos. Vasili, welcome back for another episode, buddy. How are you?
Doing well. I mean, Christmas just came and went, so obviously a great time to be with family and friends, and thankful for all of you guys as well, and all our Flyers family, and for all our listeners. So shout out to everybody for listening. I'm good, Yariv. Personally, I just got an awesome Hockey Hall of Fame, history of the Hockey Hall of Fame book for my
Ooh,
girlfriend. So in terms of like a hockey gift, it's pretty cool. So happy to
nice.
check that out in the next couple days. How was your Christmas though?
Good. My Hanukkah Christmas, but it's
Yeah,
weird because Hanukkah and Christmas ended like on the same day this year,
I
which is
know, right?
was like kind of but it was good, man. It was good family time. And that's a cool present. Well, let's introduce our guest, but he's not obviously a guest. But welcome back to the show, our man with the plan, the Flyers nitty gritty himself. I don't even know what that means. Jamey Baskow, what's up, buddy? Welcome back.
Aloha. I
Aloha.
just want to say aloha and mahalo to everybody. Thanks for having me on again. Man, it's a long time coming. I'm a douchebag. I've had to, reschedule the past two shows and stuff. And you and Vasili have been so nice. Like Vasili said, I mean, we had a great Christmas. It was a perfect Christmas for the kids and Kels and I. It was amazing. Spent it with, friends and family, like Vasili was saying. I wish I got that Hockey Hall of Fame book. Of course, I didn't get that lucky.
Yeah, I mean, some people just don't get the cooler gifts.
I
Nope.
guess so, right? You
Shout
get
out-
all the
You know what I
all the
got? Coal in my
stories,
stocking.
stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of coal. It felt like it anyway.
No,
With the way
no.
the Flyers are playing lately, it's a little bit of
Yeah.
coal for all of us.
Yeah, well,
Well,
they're
it's
playing
good.
better. They're
Yeah.
playing better.
Well, we got a lot to talk about. We got a lot to dig in. But welcome back to the show, Jamey. Glad to have you on. Don't worry about the not being able to make it. Not a big deal. We had
Yeah.
Jordan Hall on in between. That was a great one.
Yeah.
And then obviously Vasili and I love coming on here. And quite frankly, from what we can tell, guys, and you can give me feedback otherwise, but Vasili and I don't really see a difference in the numbers. In fact, some of the numbers without guests seem to do higher viewing. We don't know why. We kind of have a couple theories, but
You guys
it seems
do
to
it.
me like it's still a good show, whether we have like a guest or not. And shout out to Jason Martita, stick to hockey, for his title, but like we try to stick to hockey the entire time. And I
Yeah,
think
usually.
I think I think that
Resonates.
works. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it resonates with the Flyers fan base. They don't want no
Yeah.
sugarcoating. I think that's what separates you guys from the rest of the pack. You guys tell it how it is, whether people like it or not. Hey, there's a mute button. There's a hit button there, but you know what? The Flyers fan base is so great. They support you guys through thick and thin, and that's honestly that's a dedication that they have, and they're passionate when they like something.
Yeah, Flyers fans are the best, right? And we know firsthand,
Yeah.
obviously, from all the support we get through the show. So
Yeah. Yeah, thank you all for, again, we say it all the time. Thank you all for the show. And honestly, at this time, it's a tough time to be a Flyers fan right now, especially with the other teams, like the way the Eagles are obviously in first place in the league. You have the Phillies who just lost in the World Series, and they're going to be better this upcoming season, most likely. At least their roster is looking that way. The Sixers, I think, are 8-0 in their last 8 games. So there's winning pretty much everywhere. But I don't think the Flyers are that far away from turning this around. I know a lot of people do. I just think what Tortorella has done so far, I mean, I think it speaks. I think it speaks to a lot of the changes. I've seen good stuff here, and even the losses, and we'll talk about them. I think there's positives to take away from them more than the losses that we've seen in the previous season. Where you're just like, why did I even bother watching this game? It doesn't necessarily feel that way this year, So let's get into, but actually, before we get into our first topic, I'm going to give a shout out to our sponsor, still Jim Steaks at 4th and South. They're still closed, but they are rebuilding. We'll let you know when they reopen. And Jamey, I'm sure we'll talk about it at a time, but shout out to Jim Steaks.
Yeah, we're sending them money, by the way.
Oh.
At the end of next month, going to send it for the on behalf of Flyers Nitty Gritty. Got to give something for the employees who are out of work.
that's awesome.
Unfortunately, due to the situation, but they deserve it. I mean, those are some hard working people, and they're they work and they're Flyers fans. A lot of them are Flyers fans, and we got to help out our fellow Flyers fans in the time of need.
Ain't that the truth? Well said, Jamey. All right. Well, let's get into our first topic of the evening. So Tortorella pretty much states that publicly, and this has been brought up in some of the other podcasts, though I'm going to dispute this a little bit, but I like that Vasili, you had this as a topic, and I thought it was a good thing to bring. But Tortorella states that the Flyers are rebuilding during an interview with Martinez. And you can see that, obviously, by the actions on the ice. You can see it by the players. But my feeling from everything he was saying in the preseason is that and we were saying on this podcast, he is not putting together a lineup to win. He's been doing it the entire time. He was doing it in preseason. Regardless of what ownership has said, he's been saying it from day one. This is going to be a long, painful process. So I'll go to you first, Vasili, because I think you look like you're already ready to say something. What do you think about his comments and kind of where the Flyers sit, and Tortorella kind of, I guess, restating it maybe more bluntly to everybody's point? What do you think?
Well, I think it's a big thing, obviously, to address, just because it's kind of the first time that they've come out and really blatantly said, okay, we're in a rebuild here. I mean, they've kind of addressed the situation before nonchalantly and made references, right? But it's kind of the first time you have the organization and the head coach himself coming out and saying that. So I think it's a big thing to kind of go into. So I'll just kind of get into the quote here that head coach Tortorella went into himself on the podcast. So he said, "We can't overshoot. We can't expect more than you think you can handle. It doesn't mean you don't hold players accountable, but I think you can do some damage to building a foundation of a team when you want to do it too quickly. You're just not ready to go there. I've made mistakes that way with individuals and with teams. You want it so badly, you forget about and you miss some steps, and that's when you start spinning your wheels in the mud. We're rebuilding here, and it's from the ground floor, and we need to build it the proper way without skipping steps." So, like you were saying, Yariv, I think it's kind of going back to what he was saying, to begin the season, where it's more of an evaluative process, right? Where he's looking to find out what players he can, help develop this year, and they can be a part of the solution moving forward, as well as figuring out which players may not be a part of that solution, right? And I think that kind of all goes into the term rebuild and just setting a foundation for what the team can use after this year moving ahead, kind of to build themselves back up into a competitor. And I think a main thing to realize too is just looking at where the Flyers are and some of the younger guys that they potentially have coming up in the system already with talent like a Cutter Gauthier or a Bobby Brink. And depending on where they pick this upcoming draft, like things can change pretty quickly in the NHL. And like, look at the New York Rangers, right? They had one of the quickest rebuilds you look at from a team that was outside of the playoffs to quickly rebuilding with talent in terms of keeping veterans that could contribute, as well as adding in younger players that are of the high end nature, like a Capo Caco and a Lafreniere. So I think if the Flyers are kind of looking into that rebuild territory, that's kind of what they're probably going to try to model it after, but it just takes the draft luck, right? Like the Rangers had. What do you guys think on that?
Yeah, no, I think also before I give it to Jamey, just forcing the habits on players too, right? Is like you're seeing the effects of that today, in my opinion, already in a very short amount of time. Jamey, go ahead.
To piggyback off that, the Rangers also got lucky because they had select players hand select them too, like Adam Fox.
Exactly.
He's a generational defenseman there. They got lucky with him, and then Artemi Panarin, did the rebuild there. But see, that's what led me to the Flyers could have done the same. And that's why I don't give Chuck Fletcher any leeway or feel bad for him. Johnny Gaudreau was knocking on the door. He wanted to come to Philadelphia. They had him. They could have done it. So that was your Artemi Panarin right there, right? Essentially, right? Maybe
arguably,
it's different, but similar, in terms of like scoring aspects and stuff like that. That was your Artemi Panarin. So that
that's pretty spot on.
Especially
productivity wise.
And then with the setback with Sean Couturier, you had Dylan Strome sitting there. You signed a $3.5 million deal with the Washington Capitals. The one thing that Chuck Fletcher did well was add Tony DeAngelo to shore up, the top pairing at the time anyway, the top pairing defenseman to pair with Ivan Provorov. and you saw Ivan
and help the power play, which was
power play,
and still is an issue here.
It is, but that mainly that's a lot of it due to injury. I mean, they were missing up front. I mean, when you're missing JVR, Sean Couturier, Wade Allison, Scott Lawton.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's tough. Exactly.
It's very, very tough to come back from. Cam Atkinson. When you're missing those type of players, those caliber players like that, that's essentially power play one. Out the door almost. So that the power play numbers should be affected from the injuries, to be honest with you. But I just think that it's a breath of fresh air to hear Torts come out and say rebuild, and that this would take time. That's something that I think Flyers fans needed to hear for honesty purposes, because everyone who follows the Flyers or covers the Flyers knew that the Flyers were entering a rebuild of some sort, of some magnitude.
Exactly.
Just didn't know how bad it was going to be. When you hear John Tortorella in the summertime say we need to weed out some players, no, I don't want to trade anybody. To include, they kept Travis Konechny, right? And look at him this year. Imagine if they were weeding out players. TK would have been gone. Ivan Provorov could have been gone. Carter Hart, for all we know, could have been gone. You know what I mean? If we're weeding out players here, all that talent goes out the door. Look at Travis Konechny; he's having a career year. Ivan Provorov has had a rebound season. Carter Hart's playing phenomenally. These are just three players out of a ton that I was talking about. So I just think it's a breath of fresh air to hear some honesty and say, hey, yeah, we are entering a rebuild of some sort. I think Flyers fans needed to hear that. That was the difference between the Rangers organization and the Flyers. The Rangers sent emails or letters to their season ticket holders saying, hey, this isn't going to be an easy process. Pretty much what Torts said. It's going to be painful. You're going to see, and painful in a way, to see some of your beloved Flyers leave, essentially, right? So we may see Kevin Hayes gone. We may see JVR gone. JVR still has love. We may see, heck, you may see Travis Konechny or Scott Lawton gone. These are beloved Flyers. People, look, they traded Claude Giroux. They traded Jake Voracek. So those two beloved players have left. That's how people resonated with the Flyers. Oh, Claude Giroux, instantly, player off the top of your head. Now, when you ask other fan bases who's on the Flyers, who are they saying? Are they saying Travis Konechny, or are they saying Kevin Hayes?
Carter Hart.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's a good one. Yeah, Carter Hart's a good one. Yeah, essentially, you're correct.
I mean, right now it's like Carter Hart, Couturier,
Konechny, maybe.
But I think
Provorov.
I think the Rangers.
Those are the only guys well known around the league, I'd say.
I think in a way the Rangers did it well because they were honest with their fan base. Hey, we're in a rebuild here, and Torts finally came out and said it, and now management seems to be coming behind, Torts and saying, not saying in so many words, but saying it's a rebuild. I think, essentially, with all the injuries that they've had, losing Ryan Ellison, Sean Couturier, Cam Atkinson now out for the year.
Well,
shoot, they have no other choice but to enter a rebuild, right?
Jamie, but let me ask you this. Don't you think it would be more impactful if Fletcher said this rather than our coach saying a rebuild? Because that's how that was kind of my point. Is like I already feel like that was Tortorella's message. Where I
think he said it before. Like he's referenced footers and press conferences. He's referenced the fact that we have a long way to go. We're learning.
And Charlie O'Connor has asked him good questions about that. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
I honestly think it's too late for Fletcher. I think it's too late.
Feels like that, doesn't it?
That seems like a good assessment.
Didn't I say that in the offseason? That unless they made the playoffs, that's the only way I felt that he could keep his job, unfortunately.
If he would have came out this past offseason and said, hey, I like to change my stance from the trade deadline when I said, or before the trade deadline with the last presser before the trade deadline, where Dave Scott said there was blank checks and all this other crap.
Mm-hmm.
I think if he would have came out in the offseason and said, hey, we're going to enter a rebuild here. We have a new coach. He needs to find out the right players. He needs to find the right players that fit his system, sort of like AV. AV hand-selected his players. AV hand-selected the team that he was given eventually, with salary cap space and everything else. I think AV was a direct header in bringing Kevin Hayes here as well. But that's here nor there. It doesn't matter. There was a reason for Kevin Hayes being here anyway. But like, I just think it's too late. I think you needed to hear from Torts. I think it's more impactful to hear from Torts as opposed to Fletcher, because now it seems like, oh, what are you retracting your statement now? You liar.
Well, it's almost like Fletcher's kind of become like the parallel for me is he's almost become like the snake oil salesman, where the fan base almost they can't really believe what he's saying. He's coming with injury news or certain promises. Whereas okay, we're gonna be going into an aggressive retool, and then it doesn't happen and come to fruition. So I just think at this point the relationship with the fan base for him might just be irreparable, Yariv, and that might kind of be the thing that's happened. Whereas even if he does come forth and say it, does it really matter? Does it really change anything in terms of how a lot of people view him and the moves that he's made? Probably not, right?
I think
what sticks in my head is we're done. And he said that on the first day of free agency. Like,
dude, I love that you brought that up to me the other day.
What in the world?
Yeah, what is
How
that?
are you done? Like,
why would you even say that publicly?
What?
Yeah, exactly.
The perception you got a 4-line grinder, and we're done.
The perception you create of the team is bad just to say that, and also on top of it too, it's just like you're not leaving the door open for anything else.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you just do that anyway? But yeah.
And then you ended up adding guys through waivers anyway.
Yeah. So how are you done? That's my whole point.
Well, we know why, because he was hampered cap wise. He couldn't do anything, and
but they did have the cap. Yariv, they could go 10% over the cap, and they knew he knew at that time that Ryan Ellis was out
temporarily. No, yeah, but he didn't know Couturier was. I heard he used up the Ryan Ellis money. It was the Couturier money we didn't know about. You know what I mean? And then all the other injuries now that have piled on top of that. In
hindsight, it's terrible.
Yeah. Well, look, that's kind of why I was looking at that. And I was like, I don't blame him much for that, because I'm like, he's like, I don't know, everything I touch breaks. Let me just not touch anything. But that's kind of why I'm like,
but that's not what we need. Like you were saying, like we don't need that reactionary situation. We need a person that's going to take that situation.
It comes in and just clears the board and be like,
well, what can I do with what I have to make it better?
This is not to me saying like, oh, I could do a better job than Chuck Fletcher, though. Cockily, I think I could, but I probably can't. But I look at the team. I'm like, I have a plan. Like if people ask me, I'm like, all right, I have tough decisions that I've already made in my head that I'm going to look to do these things, but I have a two-year plan to turn this team around. I don't know if Chuck Fletcher necessarily has that right now. I don't know if he feels confident in that, but like you look at the lineup situation and the injuries and all that, he's kind of in a bad situation. Let's actually get into that first injury, and we kind of mentioned it already, but let's talk about Sean Couturier. Sean Couturier is on the ice at practice, rehabbing from his surgery again. And Jamey, I think this is what you were saying earlier, that his last appointment was on the 12th of December. Do you want to fill us in there on Jamey on Couturier?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a little frustrating why the organization doesn't come out. Like Fletcher had a presser shortly thereafter the 12th, and and you hear nothing about his doctor's appointment at all. Like I don't understand, And it's the same thing about Bobby Brink. Bobby Brink also had an appointment last week on December 22nd, and yet you hear crickets. Like, you don't have to reveal the nature, the scope of their injuries. I understand it's sensitive, and I understand it has to come from the player itself due to HIPAA privacies and stuff like that. But, like, at least just come out and say, hey, Bobby Brink has been cleared for contact. You can say that. Or, hey, Sean Couturier
is cleared for skating.
His appointment went well. He's been elevated. He is on the same schedule or ahead of schedule. It's just nice to hear. It's nice to hear some positive news from an organization that desperately needs anything positive at this point. And I feel like the only thing that's positive about this organization right now are the youth, to include Carter Hart, because he's still only 24 years old. Man. And, John Tortorella, what else? I mean, you got youth included with like Cutter Gauthier, and stuff like that. But I mean, it's just like, my word, like I don't understand. He had an appointment on the 12th, and there's nothing, no update. I mean, was it bad news? But seeing him on the ice today, skating and stuff, to me, it's good news, right? Anytime a player is skating after a significant injury where they're out, for X amount of time and had another surgery on top of that to correct the issue or whatever, it's good news to see them out on the ice. I don't understand, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I agree 100% with you there, Jamie. I mean, there's no harm after a doctor's appointment like that for Brink or Couturier, really any player for that matter, to give an update. Especially too, as you're saying, where it just seems like there's such negativity kind of surrounding the organization. Why wouldn't you, update the fan base and give them a little sprinkle of positivity in terms of having, oh, look, our first line center's back skating. Look, it looks like, the surgery's taking and going in the right direction that we want. Maybe it's possible they don't want to jump the gun on stuff just with what's happened in the past, but I still think you have to do your due diligence as an organization and give credit and, provide the correct information to the fan base and give those updates where possible. So I think they definitely should have probably given us some news on that.
And to your guys' point, I'm sorry, I'll let you comment in a second, Jamie. That Lindblom situation was a much more difficult situation. They handled that phenomenally.
Oh, yeah. That's great.
I mean? That's great. Energized the fan base.
His 300 game mark too. That's crazy. Against the Flyers, I think he'll be at. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think he's going to be at 298.
Wow,
298. So he'll be 2 games.
He's a warrior. He's a warrior, man.
Or 298 or 299. He's going to miss. He's going to miss it by 1 or 2 games. But it
would have been nuts if he did the 300th against the Flyers somehow.
That would have been great. That would have been great, right? But no, that just shows. That's why a lot of Flyers fans, to their credit, and this is why I can't ridicule them. There's a lack of trust, and the lack of trust is from the top down, and that's where it starts. Is at the top. I think the Flyers fan base, when they get pissed off at the Flyers, they're not actually mad at the team. They're not actually mad at Torts. They're not mad
players,
at the all their frustration comes out in venting because I think they're pissed off at the front office because of this lack of dishonesty.
Well, after this many years, too. After this many years, this many coaches, I do agree with that. But with Couturier skating and back on the ice, do you guys think that there's any chance that they're going to try to play him this season?
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. I think they'll play him for sure. I think it's kind of similar to a Hayes situation last season, whereas if he's good to go, you might as well, because with the injury that he's coming off of, and it's even a double back surgery at this point, like, why not get him back just to see, obviously, how it takes, but also just to get him back into kind of game shape and ready for next season, if anything.
I'm not convinced that he's going to play, but I do expect him to practice with the team this year.
Okay.
I
would you want him to play hypothetically, like if he could?
If the game I'm a little 50-50 on it. Like, I agree with you with your assessment, Vasili, but I do look at it just from a risk management standpoint, the fact that he's already had a setback. Be like, well, if he can just handle practices, we give him as long as we can to heal, and then we bring him in the in the offseason, he's going to scrimmage and stuff. They can't stop him from doing that anyway. So I don't know.
At the end of the day, these guys are human. And I think
he's going to want to play.
Yeah, exactly.
Going to want to.
He's a competitive guy.
But it would boost the team without a doubt.
I think he needs it for his mental psyche.
That's a great point.
Going into the offseason.
Let's have 50-50.
100 freaking %. I can do this. I'm ready to go. I'm going to ramp up my training.
That's a great point, Jamie. I think that's a great point.
I think that the change, if he's healthy, and they say, no, you're not going to play, just practice, I think he takes it a little lighter in the offseason and doesn't push himself through training and stuff like he normally would. Yep. Sean Couturier's training. It's very expensive.
He's going to want to, but he's going to want to be back. This is the guy who, plays on torn ligaments.
ACL,
exactly. He's healthy.
Which is why I'm not. That's kind of why I'm worried about, because I'm kind of like, dude, we want to bottom out. Like, we don't want to be more competitive. I'm fine with ending the season with Noah Cates and Morgan Frost as a 1-2 punch down the middle. I don't care. Like, I don't know why people are freaking out. I don't want anybody to get injured, but nobody should be freaking out about any injury as long as it's like relatively minor. Even the Carter Hart stuff, we'll talk about him in a minute. Like, there's no reason to freak out. Like, We're not in it to win it here. You're in it to watch that the young guys here are progressing, and that by the end of the season, this is a tough team to play against. And I would say they're already there. They're already tough to play against.
Well, just look at talent. Just look at the amount of 1-goal games that they're in, right? Like pretty much every game.
They're missing key talent in key roles, like very important roles. Like that missing a number one center is...
Well, yeah, I think that's what it is, right? A lot of it is they have players who will fill out our top 6 talent in terms of second line. They have really good defensive players, but they don't have that number one center or that number one echelon top end player that you need, right? So
theoretically healthy, our third line probably should be Morgan Frost, Tippett, and Noah Cates. Like that should have been our third line coming into the season.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I love Cates on the wing. I think he's so much better on the wing than the center. I firmly believe that.
He has more ability to produce offense on the wing.
He's more freed up, right? Like at center, he has more defensive roles, responsibilities.
Well, he's also not playing with any point producing players either on a regular. Like he is, but like they're not in a position to put up a lot of points. Like a lot of what TK is doing is kind of individual.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Which is why
Farabee are kind of working together more than I'd say Cates is getting the scoring opportunities on that line for sure.
Yeah, he's defensively
He's doing a lot of the defensive work too. But I think with Cates on that line, just to finish off the thought,
go ahead.
I'm pretty sure, like, in the way he's playing, it's more just like, okay, he's making that small little play, getting the play to go forward, and then those guys take off, and he's not really involved, But
I think it's great you mentioned Joel Farabee, because I think he's played really good the past 2 or 3 games. And even though like the points may not be there, except for that empty netter or something.
Yeah.
But like, he had a goal as well against the Leafs.
Yeah,
good point. So I'm happy. I think he's starting to turn a corner, but that's who Joel is anyway. He's like
I have zero worries about Joel Farabee. Just like Sean Couturier, he's just not a player.
That's why I don't even call him out. It's stupid. Because the moment you call him out, he's going to go on that 6 or 7, 10-game point streak like he does. And then
it's not just that. He is a prime candidate for what like Sean Couturier is and all. Like that's a guy who like you can say whatever you want about his game, but there's a reason the coach came in here and barely knew anybody and was just playing him 21 minutes a night to start the season. Coming back from that lower back surgery and everything, it's still the kid gets it, just like Noah Cates. And he's obviously a more talented version, but just like Noah Cates, he just gets it. He gets the two-way game. Something that, Hayes did not come into the NHL getting. TK, not the best two-way grasp, right? He wasn't just benched by AV, he was benched by Hackstall too. Like this is a guy who notoriously has a divisive game,
I remember that.
Well, speaking of TK, somebody who's like him, we brought him up, Bobby Brink. He's also skating, right? His timetable, I believe, was to come back in January. Clearly not going to be coming back to the Flyers. Potentially, could he play some games down the road on the Flyers? I think it's possible. I think it's
Phantoms.
Yeah, I think for sure they're going to bring him in. They're going to want him with the Phantoms. This is a guy who could really help out the Phantoms offensively if he can get back on, kind of going, and you put him with a guy like Denoyer, maybe. That could be a really interesting combination on the Phantoms. And obviously Anisimov, if he stays down there, would be a very, very dangerous combination. Yeah, because it'd be interesting to see if Bobby
10
Brink
goals in 12 games.
Yeah, he's crazy.
He's destroying
lighting it up. But it's great for the young guys because just as a mentor for them too, right? Just
he's a good NHL player.
Exactly.
You're like, holy shit.
Yeah, he's too good to be playing down there. But it is interesting to think about where Bobby Brink will be at some point in the season. He kind of healthy. I would say he's probably too good, at least age-wise, to be in the AHL. Like maybe he'd be in the AHL just because his game's not well refined, but offensively, like he has an NHL upside already.
And he showed it. He showed it last season. He was even producing a bit at the end.
Exactly. So he should be able to produce at the AHL level, even not being 100%. He should be able to walk in and be like second line player coming back from an injury, and then hopefully work up to be top line. But what do you guys think about Bobby Brink coming back? Do you see him maybe making a big impact, assuming that the Phantoms make the playoffs too?
I think for the Phantoms, it's definitely a good thing to see
And
Brink
do you
come
think he'll
back.
play in the NHL at all? I'll add that.
Yeah, sure. For the NHL, I'm not too certain, but just based on kind of what Tortorella's been saying and the organization's kind of been saying that they want to get a lot of looks to young guys, I wouldn't surprise me to see him get a shot.
Of age.
Obviously, yeah, and obviously though too, if the Phantoms are in a situation where maybe they're fighting for a playoff spot, maybe they do want to kind of load him down there instead of getting him reps with the Flyers. But I would agree, Yariv, to what you were saying. Like it's likely probably he's going to go with the Phantoms versus the Flyers. And then from that point, I think he has the ability to be a first line impact guy for them. Power play minutes, a lot of ice time, 5-on-5 in offensive zone situations, things like that. I think LaPerriere is definitely going to use him as the offensive weapon that he is, and shown that he could be. Playing it in college throughout his seasons there, because I mean he should have won the Hobie Baker, in my opinion. Got robbed last season for that award. Played very, very well. Led college in scoring. So it just shows, he's been a point producer at that level. And typically that translates well to the AHL level. So I think he can be a real impact for the Phantoms. And then hopefully, if they do go on a long playoff run or something along those lines with a guy like Brink, that kind of translates and adds even more experience for him to bring to the NHL level next season. But it'll be interesting. I think that's the most fascinating part, Yariv, to see if he will get any of those NHL reps. What do you think, Jamey, on that?
Yeah, I think you make some really good points there. I think he's going to spend the season with the Phantoms. By the time his initial injury came, when the Flyers publicly announced it, it was June, right?
Yeah, summer.
It was right around the time of Joel Farabee's when they announced his injury. And I forget if Brink was first or was it Farabee first. I forget the order that it was, but
I can't recall either.
That's 6 months of developmental time. That is a long
which
time.
Is huge.
Yeah. Like that's a massive loss. Okay, fine. I'll give people who want to, go debate with me about it. That's 3 months of developmental time. October, November, and December, heading into January. You miss 3 full months of developmental time, not to mention 3 extra months of training.
And
that's a long time.
Torts time.
Torts, he's got to get to know Torts. And that's why I think the best way to introduce a Bobby Brink is next season at training camp.
That's a great point, Jamey.
Yeah, you have Cutter Gauthier, who will be ending his season around like the Marchish, time, depending if they make the tournament or not. If they don't make the tournament, he said he's one and done. So if he's one and done, he could see 10 to 15, 20 games with the Flyers, by the time he signs his ELC. Would you rather see Cutter Gauthier or Bobby Brink?
No, I think hands down, I think that's a great point. I think you absolutely keep Bobby Brink in the minors for various reasons, unless he comes in and he's just, you're like looking at it, you're like, okay, he's probably too good for this crop. I think that's a great point. I didn't even consider the Cutter Gauthier thing.
That's an extra roster spot, right? That you got to make way for.
Yeah,
so
and I think he would have to pass through weight. No, he wouldn't have.
No. Yeah. ELC, yeah. They're both on ELC.
These guys are human beings. So, like, they're not robots.
Well,
and that's what I try telling the fans. Like, fans are like, oh, well, he can play. He could just come in and play. Well, yeah, a Sean Couturier could come in and play because he's been through the rigors.
Yeah.
He's been through that.
He's an elite pro, yeah.
He's not been through.
Bobby Brink's barely a pro. He's just becoming a pro, right?
Exactly.
And even the year before is like Hobie Baker nominee season. He actually had an injury riddled, like kind of struggle city.
Yeah.
So I think it definitely, we should not be getting ahead of ourselves. I think it's going to take time to get Bobby Brink in the Torts world too. First, he has to come in and kill it on the Phantoms. I think he probably will do that.
I think he will too. He will too. He's honestly, he's a prospect to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. he's one of our top tier offensive prospects, no doubt about it. Let's talk about our next. So Hart is also practicing with the team. I know that came up last game where he kind of stepped in for Ersan, and then got rattled a little bit with Risto. I think it was Jarvis that he smashed into Ersan. I was a little surprised that they even took him out of the game. It didn't look that severe to me, but I guess I don't understand that impact. He seems to be okay. I assume it wasn't a concussion or anything like that, or maybe it was potentially one, but I don't know. I think realistically it was probably precautionary.
Yeah.
And why even mess with it at all? If there's any kind of headshot, I mean, you do that for players, right? And when it's your starting goaltender and arguably your best player, maybe not a great risk to take in a season that doesn't matter too much. So, but it is good to see Hart back out there. I assume he's gonna play one of the next 2 upcoming games. I assume he's gonna play the game on Wednesday. Is it Wednesday? Am I thinking of the right?
Thursday, I believe.
Thursday. Yeah, I was like, Wednesday's not right. Yeah, Thursday's game. So I assume he will be playing. So
yeah, I just thought it was funny seeing some of the tweets and people panic.
Like, oh my God, not again. Like,
and I'm like,
it didn't look that bad in the first place.
Panic about
that
what
aspect. But then I was like, even if he is, it's not a bad thing. You get to see Urson and you get to see Sandstrom who would come back from his sickness. So like,
but that's the point. We're not making the playoffs. So why are people?
So Hart would be out. Is Hart not part of the youth? He's only 24.
Yeah,
he's like 30.
And for a goalie, to be honest, 24 is very, very young. Most goalies aren't coming in till 24.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Sandstrom's older, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. And even he's still even a young goalie by goalie standards being 25. Yeah. But I think for Hart, it's just mainly precautionary. Like what likely happened is they have any sort of headshot or like Jarvis kind of contacted the head. The concussion spotter sees it. They pull him for precautionary reasons. And they just say, you know what? Just take the rest of the game. We're not going to take a chance. And why would you with your star goalie, who's probably the best player on your team, like Yariv was saying. But yeah, I think the panic stuff is just like, more kind of doom and gloom, just with everything going wrong around the team.
But what's the panic? I mean, we're right now the Flyers are what, the 5th worst record in the league. What is
5th
the panic?
or 6th, something. Yeah, exactly. If anything, it makes the lottery chances better. So.
Yeah, like what are you panicking about? Just let things play out as they should. Even if he's got like a minor injury, he's out for a couple weeks. Okay, this is kind of the point of the season. This is what I was saying. Like Tortorella's, I think he was overplaying Hart for what we're trying to achieve. I don't have a problem with him playing Hart a lot if we're a playoff team.
Yeah.
But the fact we're not a playoff team is like, what's the put? Are you like trying to test if he can do it?
It might be I think it might be a sense of that, right? I think he just wants to see like, the workload what he can carry. But I think honestly,
that's what I assumed.
Tortorella too, in his press conference just before like the game in this practice today, he was kind of stating that he might even take 2 goalies with Hart as well, so it might be a 3 goalie rotation potentially. And I do think I wouldn't be surprised if, as we go along, like throughout the rest of the season, if the team does want to get more looks for Urson, if they potentially can, if possible, or even more looks for Sandstrom versus just like playing Hart all the time, because why not try to find out and just ensure that, okay, we do have a bona fide in-house backup goalie and we don't have to worry about that in the offseason. Right?
So Yariv and I were talking about this earlier on the phone about this. I actually think Sandstrom's played good.
He's been really good. I agree.
Considering the circumstances, he's playing on a lot of back-to-backs, the second end of the back-to-back situations.
Yeah.
And he's keeping the team in it, and he's hanging them in there until the third period where it's like 1-1 or 2-1, and then it's 3-1, and then the Flyers lose 3-2 because they can't finish. Yeah. I actually think he's playing well.
I had a couple games where the team played awful in front of him, kind of like Airson.
I honestly agree.
Still gave him a shot.
I agree 100%, Jamie. I think that Sandstrom's been really good. He hasn't been an issue for me at all this season in terms of like the games that he's played.
Goaltending has not been an issue.
He's given the Flyers a chance to win in majority of the games he's played. It's just the fact they can't score enough to actually get him the W.
Yeah.
In most of those situations,
or stop a lot of high danger scoring chances.
Yeah, exactly. When you're letting 2 periods in and it's 25 plus shots, where that's been the majority of Sandstrom starts, to be honest, in back-to-backs. Yeah. What do you expect for him and a rookie in the league? Like it's tough situation, right?
Let me ask you a question, Vasili. You were at the Toronto game. How was it being peppered after peppered after peppered, and you're sitting there and the Flyers end up with like 15 shots to 4?
Yeah, it's hilarious just to kind of see, because at least at that game and in that game, right? Like it's not the situation where the Flyers are getting peppered and they're down. They actually end up getting peppered kind of similarly to the beginning of the year where Hart's keeping them in it, but they somehow have the lead. And then it kind of all unravels for them with the penalties. But I think that's kind of a theme to look at with the goalies. It's a lot of the time the goalie's keeping the Flyers in it this season. And then if their play falls by the wayside, so does the team's, obviously. Yeah. Then also, it's the goal is keeping them in it, but the team just can't even rebound to the point to get themselves back in with the goal as well. So then it just falls out. Nothing you can do, right?
Yeah.
But the goaltending hasn't been a problem at all. Samson's been great. Hart's been even better.
Yeah, and I agree because of the possession play has been so weak all year, and obviously last season this was an issue too. But this season, especially at times, just no possession. How do you expect a goaltender to just constantly just take rushes the opposite way?
Hey, Earth 3-0.
Well, and then it piles on the D. Yeah. Well, it's a problem. It's just look, there's lots of layers of issues here, and that's what it compounds onto the goalie. And a goalie can be lifted up by a great team as well. But like, look at Hart's numbers. I think I was just listening to Bill Meltzer and Martinez talking about it. Like, his numbers do not indicate how good he is. Yeah. He is absolutely an all-star.
Yeah, like he only has a 911 save percentage. He only has a 911 save percentage. Really, for Hart, the metric you got to look at is expected goals saved. If you look at that metric, you'll see him up near the top of the league because he's saving so many goals above expected because the Flyers get peppered with shots every single night.
Just watch him play, and you're like it's not.
There's certain games you see, and you're like, well, the Flyers, it's like a 1-0 game. Let's say they're losing, and they're like, which could be 6-0 or 5-0. Yeah.
He'll make it.
I scroll through a tweet, and they're like, he should have had that one. And I was like, you do know it was a 3-1. Well, it doesn't matter. He didn't. He should have had it.
Look,
and I'm like. Okay.
He has given up some goals where you're like, okay, you should have had that one, but he does that a lot less, and he's 24 years old.
Yeah.
People don't understand.
But also, you does
that at a veteran level.
One mistake, holy moly, those detractors come out.
Yeah, and he erases like 5 or 6 more beforehand, right?
Yeah. So so let's talk about Ersan a little bit, though. What do we think about his debut the other night? There was a crazy game against Carolina where obviously he gets pummeled. Not his fault. Maybe one of the goals you can think maybe he can get a piece of that one, but the rest of them, unsavable. And then Hart comes in, gets his injury, and then Ersan goes back in, and the game obviously complete turns around. We'll talk about those other performances. But I thought Ersan, as far as like, from it turning out to be a disastrous start, not necessarily for him, but just for the team, it was almost like a tale of two teams where like 90% was one team and then like 5% of the game was this other team where Ersan all of a sudden was like able to kind of, hold in net, and the Flyers just came in and just kind of threw in goals, and they had the opportunity to tie again, and just, another one of those near misses where we saw that against Toronto as well. But you saw the team kind of battle, and you saw Ersan kind of get to touch on that. What do you guys think? Do you think that helps in Ersan's debut, even though he did give up a lot of goals? Not his fault. I think you can obviously see that even from the footage. But do you guys think that at least it helps, after giving up a lot? It can be really tough. And Vasili, you were a goaltender. I mean, you would know that.
Yeah, for Ersan, just making your debut in general in the NHL, I imagine, is going to be a nerve-wracking thing, obviously, especially for a young goaltender of his age. It's not like he's, a veteran in the AHL or anything like that. Like, it's really almost his rookie season, even in the AHL as well. He didn't play many games last season due to his injury, so I'm sure, it's a big situation for him. It's a good thing in the sense that I thought that despite letting in, like, he literally let in the first shot that Carolina had. After a while, they didn't even get a shot on net to start off, and then kind of ended up just peppering him throughout the rest of the game, which is kind of ironic. So he lets that first shot in, but then he really settles in after that. He does make some really big saves and does keep the Flyers in it, and then it gets into the second period, and then it just unravels from him from there. I think as he gets pulled on that fifth goal, I believe that they had 25 shots against him.
Yeah,
that's only midway through the second period. And the Flyers only had 10 shots, so it just shows like they weren't playing well in front of him. To let up 25 shots on a rookie goaltender, that's all on the team in my perspective. Like there's nothing really he can do. He's not an NHL goalie. He's a rookie. You shouldn't be giving up that quality of chances. But what is, I mean, the positive in the situation is that he gets to get back into the game, which is a weird scenario. As a goalie, you mentally, once you're pulled, you're kind of dejected a little bit as a goalie. That's usually just what happens because you're like, obviously that's the last thing that you want to happen. If you get pulled, the game didn't go the right way for you. So he gets a chance to kind of redeem himself. I think that's a good thing because there's redeeming qualities. Comes back in the third period, doesn't let another goal in after Carter Hart ends up letting one goal and then gets pulled there. So he doesn't let in any more goals. I think that's definitely a positive thing for him because it started out not in the greatest space for him in his debut, and then at least the team almost battles back and he gives them the chance to get the victory. And that's ultimately, as a goalie, your goal. You want to be able to give your team a chance to win, and that's what Ersan did. So I think he can leave his debut feeling better about himself versus what it would have been if, let's say, Hart stayed in the game where it ends up being, you getting pulled in your debut. Now he can kind of redeem himself a little. So I think that's good for his psyche in general.
Yeah. Well said, dude. Totally. Jamey, go ahead.
That's hard to piggyback off of there.
That was a good breakdown.
That's the whole kit and caboodle there. I might take some heat for this, to be honest with you. I actually think Torts mishandled the tandem. I think that Samuel Ersan should have started against the Toronto Maple Leafs as opposed to the Carolina Hurricanes and made his debut then. What's that? I actually thought that Carter Hart was going to start against the Canes because they played at 2 p.m. Against the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I was like, okay, I was dead set on Carter Hart starting against the Canes because it gave him an extra 3 hours, in between, the game. Had 27 hours off at that time. So I actually thought, I was like, wow, I don't think Ersan's going to make his debut. And then when he announced that he was, I was like, why didn't Ersan? The Flyers haven't played well on the second end of the back-to-back for the majority of the season with the rare occasion.
Yeah, you're right.
Of
and he set up the rookie again.
I don't understand why Ersan would start against the Carolina Hurricanes.
I agree 100%.
The Maple Leafs, but
you hope that you win that first game, I think.
He's a coach for a reason.
Yeah. I think you're right, Jamie. Sorry to cut you off. I mean, just the fact that, they haven't played good on back-to-backs whatsoever, it does make sense. Why wouldn't you start Ersan to begin? I think they're probably looking for the win. They're looking for the win with Hart. They think they probably could. They think they probably could win easier against the Leafs in that situation. Yeah. But it just doesn't work out in both scenarios, unfortunately.
Yeah, but to Jamie's point, I mean, he's probably right. Though.
He is right. Yeah.
I mean, Ersan played well considering the circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like Torts. Torts said it perfectly today. He was like, I'm not going to critique Sam. It's his first NHL game. Yeah. He was like, all I can tell you is that he played well in the third period. And, and he did. He played phenomenally in that third period. And I think you saw what a Samuel Ersan can give you. He can shut down. He can lock
He also said he was our best goalie in the preseason.
Yeah, I don't take that lightly, what Torts says about Ersan. He obviously thinks fairly highly of him, right?
Yeah.
So.
Don't you guys?
I do, yeah. Just for his age.
It doesn't change. This game did nothing for my view on him.
No, it doesn't change anything. I didn't
even think about it, to be honest.
I think for his age and for the poise that he's showing, I honestly think that seeing him get pulled and then come back and seeing how he reacts strengthens my view of him.
Yeah.
Because it just shows that, like, personally, for a goalie, that's a tough thing to do, to get pulled and to have to go back in.
Oh, yeah.
Like, so that's just to see him do that just speaks volumes about how calm and how poised he is as a goaltender. So
yeah,
I think we learned a lot about him, to be honest.
Absolutely.
Agreed. 100%.
Yeah. So let's get into some top performers here. I guess we'll go into the first one here. Konechny, and we'll add Scott Laughton into that. We can talk to him as well. But obviously showing PK value as well as Laughton, a big reason why the Flyers were even in that game against Carolina at the end there. It was clearly them. I mean, but overall, Konechny, it's interesting. I think people were like, oh, he's showing he's like a 65, 70 point player. I think he showed that like a few years ago. He's showing right now that he has, he's showing his potential maybe in the right situation, put up 90 points a season.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what would he be doing if Sean Couturier was activated and playing on a line with him? I know people want to like it's not like, oh, well, somebody's got to score. That's not a real thing here. Like nobody can score. Actually, the offense can get worse, but he seems to be getting better.
We saw how it was. We saw how it was without him.
Yes,
right? Like, were they scoring? No,
they couldn't even get opportunities on net on a regular basis.
That's what I mean. I think with Konechny, like the Flyers should be thrilled, obviously, just for the fact that he's bounced back to this extent. And I think you're 100% correct. He's showing that. I mean, he could be a point a game guy in this league. I argue that a lot of his offense lately is very individualistic, where he's kind of creating the plays himself.
Yes,
with his speed, or just off rushes and kind of doing a lot on his own. Obviously, Torts touched today in his press conference just on the PK ability. I think it's great that they're kind of unlocking that within his game. I think they're trying to kind of mold him similarly into like what Torts did for an Atkinson, whereas Atkinson didn't really start playing on the PK as well in his career until Tortorella was the coach either. So I think they're kind of trying to use
I like his aggressive PK though. I like
exactly. They're using
trying to convert it to offense.
They're using him in a similar manner. That's kind of what Atkinson would do, right? Fast breaks, uses anticipation to kind of
Lawton can do that too.
Yeah, I think you have Lawton and TK together, both doing the same thing, anticipating. It's really giving them, a shorthanded unit that can kind of be a threat offensively, and they haven't had that for a while, right? Since the early days of Giroux and Couturier kind of coming in, and even back to Mike Richards.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good thing to see, and I mean, I think Konechny can build off it because it's only his first year doing it. So I mean, I'd say the more he does it, probably the better he can even get. And you never know, it could even look better if you have a PK unit of him and Couturier in the future, even though him and Lawton are very good as well. So,
yeah, well said. Jamey, go ahead.
I think the difference in TK's game is he has a good coach. And I think that's what TK has searched for, is a good coach. And you're seeing a coach that just letting him ride, letting him
gets him.
And you hear him in his press conferences, like to piggyback off of what Vasili said about press conferences and stuff. He's like, Torts has said, we got to learn how to tame him, because he starts to get that energy, and then he gets a little sidetracked and just goes and tries to be, that fighter or, whatever, trying to give, he's just trying to pump his team up, essentially, is what he's doing. But I think Torts is saying, hey, he's too valuable to be doing this. He shouldn't be the one to do this. You take him off the ice for 5 minutes, it's going to hurt us as opposed to help us. And I think that's what Torts' message is trying to get across to his team when he says it in his pressers. It's like, hey, TK shouldn't be doing this. You see what he's doing on the ice? He's potting, 2 or 3 points a night, at least 1 point. He can't be taken off the ice. That's why they have Nick Delorier. That's why you have a Zach McEwen. That's why you have, JVR even, who's more valuable to take off the ice, JVR or TK? I'd rather have JVR. You know what I mean? Exactly. So I think that's what Torts' message is trying to get across. He's phenomenal. It's unreal what good coaching does to a player. And I think that is the difference from TK of this year as opposed to prior years.
I think they're letting him just get into the mix and be himself out there. They're not really reining him in. I think a lot of the coaches of years past with the AV and Haxel, they were kind of maybe reining him in a bit too much, whereas Konechny thrives where you kind of just let him be him and mix it up and get into those extracurriculars. And one last thing I wanted to mention, that's kind of a crazy stat, is Konechny in 29 games, he has 32 points, which obviously is phenomenal. 30 of his 32 points are all primary points. So they're either goals or primary assists, meaning that he's not getting those secondary assists. He's creating the offense himself, which just shows
that's obvious.
Of a play driver he's being, right? Like,
who was it with was it Haxor or AV in a preseason game? And like during the preseason, they tested him out on the penalty kill and didn't use him on a penalty kill. And I was like, man, imagine him and Patrick.
I think it was AV.
I think it might have been AV. It might have been AV like very early in his tenure.
Because I remember Nolan Patrick. Nolan Patrick should have been on the penalty kill as well.
Yeah, they also didn't do it here. Yeah.
He was really good, even though he was really good in Brandon on the PK.
I'm not a big fan of them excluding young guys from the PK, which Torts has not done here.
Especially too when I mean, what's the modern day really NHL game about? A lot of it's speed and aggressiveness, and that's traits of those guys' games. So why wouldn't you lend their specific skill sets to doing that and like
Yeah.
helping you in that way? It doesn't make a lot of sense, but
Yeah.
I like what Torch is doing. He knows what he's
Yeah.
doing with the PK. It shows, right?
Trust. He
Yeah.
trusts. He trusts him.
Yeah.
I mean, he flat out said he's our best player. He's a leader. It's great. Good coaching. That's all it is. Is good coaching. The talent's always been there. The talent has always been there. And I know Yariv has said this, and I know you have, Vasili, as well. And and I have said it. I've hammered it down. I wasn't a fan of trading a Travis Konechny, last year, the year before, this offseason or whatever. The talent has always been there.
Yeah.
I agree. Why give up on a guy like that?
He's 25. He is now entering his prime. Why? This is why I don't understand it. Why are people taking his sample sizes from his early 20s and going, "Oh, this is what he is"? What player does that? I really don't understand where I feel like I'm taking crazy pills when I hear that stuff, because I'm like, I don't understand why this is always a constant conversation when, like, if you eliminate the 1%ers completely, like your McDavids and your Austin Matthews, there are no like young guys are not destroying it around the league. Yeah. Like they're like learning the game. Like most of the top guys are veterans.
You got to develop, right? That's the crucial thing. That's what Konechny was doing these years. He's developing his game, becoming better, and to reach this point, right?
Right, so. And that's what we from the beginning he was compared to Brad Marchand. Yeah. Brad Marchand did not come into the NHL and look like a superstar.
And Brad Marchand didn't hit 80 points to like his 5th or 6th year in the league.
So. Brad Marchand hasn't played for like 6 different coaches either.
Yeah.
He's a great player. Hopefully TK can hit that level.
That's a good point too.
But he's on this way too.
That the Flyers have had crazy amounts of coaches. Think about it. Some of these players have been through the Hacksaw era. Yeah. Then they went through, they went through the AV era. And then from the AV era.
I mean, look, I've talked about this before though, but prior to the NHL, like these guys had new coaches every year. So like there isn't a lot of like staying with the same coach for very long in your life. So like I don't want to make it an excuse here in Philly, because like I agree with it.
Yeah.
But it's like it hurts our org. It hurts us in like many ways, but it shouldn't stop guys from progressing. You know what I mean? Shouldn't stop people from like moving forward completely, at least. It's not ideal, but I feel like it's normal. A guy who's
it's crazy you say that, because Sean Couturier gives all his credit to John Cooper.
Wow. He coached him in juniors, correct?
Yeah.
John Cooper is fantastic.
Well, that's not surprising.
Yeah. So another player we have on our list is D'Angelo, and I'll give this Vasili, you had this on the list. 8 points in his last 8 games. D'Angelo is definitely picking it up. We've seen it especially in the recent games. Saw it against Toronto and against Carolina. Definitely had strong games there. Good to see. Would like to see him back up on the top pairing, to be honest with you, and to get that kind of offensive threat in the top pair. But I'm liking the experimentations. I don't like the fact that we don't have our defense figured out, but I get it to some degree. But good to see D'Angelo's play. Vasili or Jamey. Vasili, why don't you go first?
Yeah, sure. With D'Angelo, I mean, it's just encouraging to see him scoring, obviously, again, to the extent that he's been with 8 points in his last 8 games, just because he had a couple of games there with a dry spell of not having points, and obviously for an offensive defenseman, that's what you're looking for, the production. And a lot of those points too have been coming on the power play the last couple of games as well. So the Flyers have been good to cash in there, getting a little better. I mean, they did go through a big dry spell as well, kind of middle of the season, but it's kind of been turning around a little bit, which is probably a product of D'Angelo returning to the lineup as well. Mm-hmm. And I think one thing that we got to note too is, I mean, he is offensive defenseman, and that's always going to be his strength, is the offensive side of the puck. He's never going to be was it Tano Chara or anything like that in his own end, or be a world-class defender or anything like that. But D'Angelo, I think this season he has done pretty good with just his quick stick and just breaking up plays in terms of anticipating stuff on the rush. Like one example of that is in the Canes game, where he breaks up a pass in his own D zone by laying out kind of on a 2-on-1. And then from that point, he passes up to Frost, who outlets Sanheim for a goal. And I mean, it just ends up being a quick play like that. But that's something that D'Angelo really gives you, where the ability to kind of stop something quickly with anticipation, turn it around on a dime,
Yeah.
and then have it be an offensive chance for you. So I think that's a great thing for D'Angelo, just what he can bring. And seeing him do that, I think, speaks to him probably continuing to improve as we go along here since he's returned. What did you think on D'Angelo lately, Jamey?
Yeah, I think Tony has actually played well defensively. I like his stick. His stick's been a little more active, and I don't know if that's like hammering it home from the coaching staff or whatever for them to start using their sticks, because I see a lot of other players, having their sticks in the right positions to, intercept the pass and, try to go transition up the ice anyway. I like his transitional game better, and that's how you know he's a confident, player, is the way he moves the puck up the ice. His power play, I love how he hits the net 9 times out of 10. I think he's been playing. I actually think he's been playing well this season. I actually think, I won't say he's been the best defenseman, but I think he's played solid defensively this season overall. He's had his downfalls, especially when he was banged up there for a little bit. And I wonder how much that foot actually like hindered him, with his step and different things and stuff.
Sure.
Bad games there during that stretch. But overall, I think he's been a solid addition to the lineup. And I'm actually happy with the addition.
Yeah.
I think that, again, how he opened with the power play, and stuff like that before before you guys started the podcast and stuff, how we were talking. I think the power play's been hindered by injuries a lot.
Oh, yeah.
So it's great to start seeing these players come back healthy, and you're starting to see Tony D'Angelo with his confidence blasting it from the point, because he can hit the net 9 times.
He hasn't been, but I don't think he's been shooting enough. Like, I agree with you, but I thought he would shoot more, and he's not been shooting enough. And I could say that about a lot of guys on this team, but he's one guy I thought would be taking more shots on the point.
Hopefully we can see it maybe throughout the second half of the season. I really want to see like kind of a setup on the power play. They don't have Tippett right now on the first unit, but I do really want to see him, Tippett, and Frost on top as an umbrella. I think they could really do damage. I mean, why not give it a chance? You don't have much going on this season, so I mean, you might as well see what kind of your young guys have with your potential top QB, right, going forward. So
yeah, and I think we'll see more experimentation as we move forward. You brought up Frost. He's our last player. We'll talk about him, and then we'll end our World Junior talk here. So Frost, and I'll give you Vasili the shout out again. He pulled these stats together, but 9 points in his last 10 games, 14 points in 34. Obviously, things are changing with Frost. You can see it. The eye test, you don't need the stats even. Yeah. Where I would say he wasn't playing poorly, but again, just like D'Angelo, they're an offensive player. If you're not producing offensively, your value is diminished in the eyes of the coaching staff, in the eyes of the fan base. Even if you're like, Frost has not done anything wrong this year. He's never played terribly for long stretches of time. He's not been a detriment defensively. Like, that's not been the issue with him. It's really just, is he going to hit that next level of productivity? And as of late, I mean, he's been clearly one of the Flyers' best offensive producers. We even saw the other night when they had that comeback that he was elevated and playing with TK for parts of that game. Makes sense. I love what I've seen. I don't think it's so much that he changed his game drastically. It's more of what we've been talking about. He has been playing more assertive. He didn't do any of the fighting and any of that stuff, but his stick is harder on the ice. His shots are harder. He's doing things with more confidence. He's cutting into the zone quicker and taking shots where he's kind of like cutting in and then kind of throwing the puck off. Now he kind of wants the puck. And I think that's the biggest noticeable change. I think that's huge. And if there's a positive sign to any of this, no matter where the Flyers finish, is where do guys like Frost and Cates and Tippett and Provorov and all these guys in their early mid-20s, like where do these guys finish this year, right? And TK, are they going to be better where you can now start removing veterans and bringing new veterans to kind of help bring that up, or maybe add some additional youth where they'll be ready in 2-3 years, right? So all of that is there, and I think Frost showing what he's showing, I think if he continues this, obviously, like he's probably getting re-signed. If he does get traded, he's going to get a nice return. Even what he's done recently, I would say could even net you a second round pick. So I think overall his value has gone up. I think his game's gone up, and it's really nice to see because there's been a lot of people defending. Shout out to Bill Meltzer and Chris Mayer. They're both of them nonstop talking about Frost, and I was never pro or negative Frost anyway. I just want to see more of that assertiveness, and I was getting frustrated that I wanted to see that. Now I'm seeing it, so he's giving me what I want. I don't even need him to do 9 points in 10 games. If he would have done 5 points in 10 games, I'd be happy.
Yeah.
But to see that he's doing this level, it's awesome. I imagine it'll maybe balance out a little bit, but this is what we wanted to see. This is what we want to see. It's great to see. Vasili, you want to go first? Or Jamey, go ahead. You can take first on this one.
You wanted to see consistency, and that's sort of what he's giving you right now is consistency. Yeah. And, I just think, he's a different player. You're seeing he's a very talented player. He doesn't score, try to score, a goal in between his legs, against Toronto. Vasili, you could take it from here because you were in the press box. You interviewed him. You had a great interview with him. You saw what was it in the first period or something where he tried scoring in between his legs and the goaltender made a great save. What was your eye view of that?
Yeah, so basically when he was coming in, it was just quickly off the rebound, like Tippett shoots it in, then he gets a little rebound and can kind of go between the legs there and almost ends up tucking it in past the Leafs goaltender Samsonov. So I think it speaks to your point, the consistency, and then the main thing and what that kind of play shows Jamey is the confidence. And I think that's the main jumping point is just the confidence for Frost because I think the talent was always there. I think it goes back to something that John Tortorella actually said in one of his press conferences a couple of weeks ago when kind of this stretch was coming out for Frost. It was after the 4-point game against Arizona, actually, that, once Frost, he said, gets out of his head a little bit and he lets himself to just play, things start to go smoothly for him on the ice and you see the plays happening and he gets the mojo going, right? I think a lot of it with Frost is just a mental thing where he maybe was in his own head a little bit too much and there's just a lot of expectations, a lot of pressure for him himself, right? And that's obviously a thing that anybody can go through, right? He's a young guy, a lot of pressure, a lot of expectations. So I don't fault him for that at all. But I think once you're now seeing him relax a little bit and get his confidence, that you're seeing him try plays that he would try in Sault Ste. Marie and juniors and try at the AHL level where that skill's coming out. But he wasn't really able to do that at the NHL level yet. And now we're kind of seeing him do that where probably on a nightly basis at this point, we're looking, wow, look at that play that Morgan Frost made with his stick handling or the way he's cutting into the neutral zone with his speed and then passing it off and making a nice dish or even being assertive with his shot. And I think, too, one thing that we're going to see as the confidence even continues to grow, because I don't think that he's reached the peak yet. I still think there's a lot to go in terms of his consistency and just his confidence level, but I think his shot can even get a lot more assertive within his game, and we're seeing it too, that he's being more confident in terms of coming in the zone, being willing to shoot it off the fly, things like that. I think we're going to see all that come around in his game. It's a great thing to see for Frost. I think we all knew that the talent was there, but it was just a matter of how can the Flyers unlock that. And I think Tortorella is a great coach for that because he's one of those coaches that's going to always push a player no matter what. And I think that even goes into showing with Frost lately where he's been playing well, and Tortorella even moves him up to play with Konechny. But he says in a press conference, I thought he could be better. He didn't play too well in the first 2 periods against Toronto, things like that. And that's all part of Tortorella's mind games and just the way he is going to help a player and push their buttons to get better. I think there's more for Frost, and hopefully we get to see it, right?
Well, let me ask you something. Would you, as an outsider, want to see Frost have this good stretch and be satisfied with himself? Or would you be like, no, dude, like we want you to be a point per game player in the league?
I want that, the latter.
Exactly. So that's how Tortorella is doing. Exactly. And this is what the standard comment, which I'm honestly getting really annoyed at that. But
because it keeps getting mentioned every 5 seconds now.
Yeah. But the idea is like he's setting an expectation that's like, guys, like we can't accept an average we can't accept a good enough version of ourselves.
Yeah, you constantly as a player, and this is what Tortorella is looking for within his players and within the habits that he's building on the ice, right? Well, he constantly wants his players to be pushing themselves, even no matter what happened in the past, if it was the best game or something like that.
Look, this is something I talked with, I've talked to CEOs about this. It's like, is a big difference between companies and like a sports team. A sports team needs to win. You have a window that needs to win. It's not about profitability. Like, profitability, blah, 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 but you spend an ass load amount of money.
It's the results, right?
To win. Yeah, it's all the winning brings the money. So it's all about winning in a window that you have. So it's not about like saying, oh, if you didn't win, you suck or you're not valuable. It means that everybody's mindset should be, I'm not good enough until I win.
So let's get better until that point.
Yeah. Yes. That's exactly what Tort said. He said,
and the org needs to think that way.
He was asked the question, what was it, like a month and a half ago, 2 months ago? How do you fill the stadium? Win.
Yeah.
And look, it's a problem with what Chuck Fletcher was saying too. Like, oh, I'm looking to prove people wrong. But it's like, dude, why would you even say that, dude? Our team has lost 2 seasons in a row. Like, you don't have you should be like, you should be talking about like, well, we need to raise our expectation. We need to do better. Like, that's all you should be talking about is how much better we need to do than we've done. Regardless of whether people are trying hard, that should be implied. Like, we know that already, you know? But it just doesn't feel like, again, it's a lost communication between the two. It's obvious. I mean, I can't disagree with it. You know, even if I don't want the drama to be there, it's just so obvious.
Yeah, there's a disconnect between obviously the coach and the front office in a sense, for sure.
So let's close on our final topic here. World Junior talk. We won't get too deep into this. Just let's talk Cutter Gauthier. So Cutter Gauthier he made Team USA. He's playing top line left wing with Logan Cooley and what's Snuggard's first name again? I forget.
Jimmy Snuggerud, I think that's what you say.
Jimmy. Right? Yeah, Snuggerud. God, what a crazy
name. It's a crazy name to pronounce. Like, I was butchering it like the last 2 days. It's awesome.
Absolutely. So obviously, both of which were high picks as well, where Cooley was taken ahead of Gauthier. Gauthier didn't put up a point. Snuggard had a goal. Cooley had an assist, and USA won 5-2 in a game against Latvia. From what I understand, I didn't get to watch the game. Gauthier had his own selective opportunities. I don't know if one of you guys had a chance to watch the game, if you guys want to speak on it, but I've seen the kid play. I don't really have much doubts in him, and I'm not a big like judge a guy on a tournament thing. Like, I learned my lesson because a lot of like decent players will do well in tournaments.
Yeah. And it's a small sample size.
Well, it means they can be like good NHL players. It just doesn't mean that they're going to be like a top producer. Where like Red Savage has 2 points. I don't think he's like the best USA player, right? But he's a gamer. So that's everything I hear. The guy's a gamer, right? So like that's interesting stuff to look at. But
he's a heck of a pick for the Detroit Red Wings. Red Savage. He's out of the Red Wings organization.
Yeah,
and he's an alternate captain.
That's kind of what I'm saying. I'm just not putting too much stock into the productivity, especially at this point of these.
Yeah, only a couple of games in.
If you watched that first game against a tough Latvian team,
they played well. Yeah.
That thing, it was 1-1, and then
it was 2-2 up until like the end of the second, basically.
But Cutter Gauthier, believe it or not, even though Dylan Duke had a goal and an assist, Red Savage had a goal and an assist, Logan Cooley, like you said, had a goal. He was one of the best skaters for Team USA. Like, skating created problems for the Latvian team. His size is impeccable. And given his size, what is he? 6'2"?
Yeah.
182, 190 pounds, something like that.
Who?
Size.
Gauthier? No, he's bigger than that.
Like,
he's 6'4". Oh, he's 6'2"? I think he should be 6'4". He's 6'2", 194. I thought he was taller than that. Anyway, 6'2", 194.
His size and it gave them problems. It was unreal. I couldn't believe it. A kid that tall with that amount of weight at the age of 18.
To skate how he skates.
Yeah.
He can skate. He skates solidly for Boston College, but I didn't think his skating was like impeccable or anything.
No, he's a great skater. Yeah. He's a lateral mover. He reminds me of Draisaitl in a lot of ways.
He's got explosiveness to his game. Like, I thought there was a couple times in that game, like he had 5 shots on goal, and and was a +1, so that's a good thing. But I thought he could have had multiple goals with all his chance. Like he had a breakaway he didn't score on. He had a couple one-timers on power plays he didn't score on where he had really good looks. And I thought that was great point by you, Jamie. Like I thought that was the most impressive thing about his game. Like we know the shots there. We already know that about him, but his skating looked explosive. Like he was separating himself from Latvian players and making his own space and opportunity. So I think that's a real thing to watch for Flyers.
Yeah, I was very surprised by that. I was impressed, and you see it a little bit with Boston College, but like I guess because I don't know, but like he just seemed like determined yesterday. I don't know. I hope it continues. Because he was really good. Now Zanetti, on the other hand, Brian Zanetti,
he had an assist today for Switzerland.
Zanetti did?
Yeah.
That's good because I thought he struggled in this first game a little bit. And he only played 17-30.
Didn't they have an upset though?
Yeah, they upset the Finns. But I thought he struggled a bit. I don't think he was like the Zanetti that we've known with Switzerland. With Swiss, he usually plays like 26, 27 minutes a game.
Yeah, he's usually on the top pair for them, yeah.
Yeah, and he only played 17 minutes the other game. Now, granted, I guess they played the day before, so maybe they were using his time wisely. How much time did he play today?
Let me check it out. They won again today against Latvia in the shootout.
Did they?
Yeah, they did.
I didn't see it.
I can't find it right now, unfortunately, but I'm sure he's probably up there in minutes. I don't get the box score on this app for some reason.
Yeah. But
hey, good to see him get an assist anyway for confidence.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then other thing to touch on too, I guess, just to end the World Junior stuff, which is kind of a upset. I mean, Canada losing 5-2 to Czechia. That's a big upset just for crazy, obviously. But it's a big thing just because, I mean, you got Beddard on the team, Fantilli, multiple first-round draft picks like a Shane Wright making his way back, and Owen Zellweger, Dylan Gunther. It's crazy to me. I honestly think for them, like you were saying, Jamie, it's a lot of cockiness. Two Michigan attempts in the first period.
That's where I was getting to was all what they have, what they end up with.
So you mean what Tortorella was talking about a couple years ago when he was... You mean he was right?
I think
I don't know if he was right, but
he's kind of right.
Game, didn't they?
What was that?
Did they end with 3 Michigan attempts for the game? Team Canada?
They had two attempts.
So this, I think, was Tortorella's point when he sees that stuff. It's like, I don't think you'd be out of your goddamn mind to say that Trevor Zegras does not deserve to do the move that he did. And Trevor Zegras is a star. I love him. I would stab a dolphin to get him on our team. I love Trevor. I want to make that very clear. But I do understand Tortorella's point where he was saying, like, hey, like, that's cool and all that, but that's not how you win hockey games.
No, and also the other team
very rare that the
other team doesn't take it lightly either.
Right, yeah. But it's also not really what wins you hockey games. As you can see, the most talented team in this tournament just lost a game they shouldn't have lost.
No,
against a competent team.
I think the Czechs, they played really well. To be honest, like Juracek.
Yeah, but you have Connor Bedard on the team.
I know. Like, Canada got upset. They should have played so much better. I think the thing for them and where they kind of went wrong is they were being
right.
Yeah, their approach, but also just being way too fancy, not just being simple with it. That's what the Czechs were doing. That's what won the Czechs the game. They're just playing simple hockey.
But that's kind of my point. Is that that was what Tortorella was saying? Is like, if you can nail that part of your game and you guys can win the simple hockey, and let's end on this topic actually, because I brought this up the other day. If you can win the simple hockey game, then do the fancy shit on top of it. You'll be the best team in the league. Yeah. Like that's what Tampa Bay. That's why he was able to beat Tampa Bay. That's why if you look at the Flyers today, we give trouble to good teams, even though we're not talented enough to beat Toronto. We don't go away. We're not talented enough to beat Carolina. We won't go away. We are an annoying team to play against, and even though we're not talented enough to win, we're still annoying to play against because fundamentally, while our expectations have actually gone up, people don't notice that. This team is playing vastly better defensively than they have. We're becoming an annoying team to play against. We're going to have to give it, and that includes Kevin Hayes, We're gonna have to give him more time. Like we got to give it the whole season. We don't know what kind of season Kevin Hayes will have. What happens if Kevin Hayes just all of a sudden starts becoming a better defensive player? That is not out of the realm of possibility that he buys in. He hasn't played as well since he made that
but I think that Torch is going to give him.
He's going to have to look at that.
I think Torch is going to give him another opportunity. I mean,
like he already has.
Yeah, exactly. And he's kind of
references.
He's kind of references too in this press conference earlier today, saying like, there's points where I think I'm going to see it fit to put Hazy back at center, things like that. So I think we'll see him back at center as well. And just
it's not a doghouse move. It's Hayes. You're better than this. Same thing that he does to Fraud. You're better than this, Hayes. He is.
Yeah, definitely.
He's better than he's played.
Just to end with the World Juniors, even though Canada lost 5-2, like I don't know if you guys saw the game, but Bedard, man, like the kid's insane.
And dude, you watch him play for like 2 seconds,
and you're like, wow.
I was actually I have his elite prospect page. He is projected to do 142 points in 62 games.
That's like Gretzky numbers
in the WHL. 60 goals, 82 assists.
That's Gretzky numbers for juniors, man.
His numbers, and I don't know this prep. Like I don't know like this league well. The CSS HL under 18. He played for West Van Academy Prep. He had in 36 games, he had 43 goals and 41 assists.
What was that when he was like right before juniors? So like probably like 13, 14. That's
dude, first year of juniors with the Regina Pats in 15 games. So he must have been what, 15?
15, yeah.
Yeah. 12 goals, 16 assists in 15 games.
Yeah, dude, that's the most impressive part. Is like last year he had over 100 points in the WHL, which is like the lowest scoring major junior league. I think in junior hockey, and he's only 16.
He's playing
against guys that are 20.
He shouldn't be in juniors. He should be at least in college hockey or playing against men.
Yeah,
he's
crazy.
Too good. He's too good for juniors. No point of having him.
And even you see it's nuts because you see guys that are on that Canada team and they're NHL players like Shane Wright,
and he's still much better than them.
Yeah, and they're deferring to him on the power play, whereas typically on a junior team you'd see that NHL guy.
It's so noticeable how talented he is.
He's crazy. If the Flyers somehow luck into him, geez.
I'm getting a Bedard jersey day one, and I guarantee it would literally change this team overnight.
Well, it'd be like
Philly would be like, wow. But like getting Bedard would change. It changes any franchise that's struggling overnight.
Oh yeah, it's like the equivalent.
Just like Edmonton.
Well, it's like Edmonton getting McDavid. It's Pittsburgh.
They weren't relevant. They weren't a playoff team until he got there.
Well, yeah, it's Edmonton getting McDavid, Pittsburgh getting Crosby, the Flyers getting Lindros. It's that equivalent where you're getting that generational guy, and then at that point you're off and running. Really.
Can you imagine for complete fantasy land, Flyers show up next season with a 1-2 punch of Couturier and Bedard, and then Gauthier gets added to the team? You want to talk about a Rangers revival?
Well, that's what I mean. Like I mean, obviously at this point it's a very low percentage of happening, but anything's possible. So that's the hope you have to have as a Flyers.
Pray to your hockey gods, y'all.
Yeah.
If we all with our powers combined, we will make Bedard a Flyer. All right.
Yeah. Any pick in the top three will be thankful for.
Hey, you never know, dude. You never know. For the love of God, please. What?
They're going to start offloading here, so it's possible.
Yeah.
My fingers are crossed.
Me too.
All
everything.
Right. Let's cut it here. Jamey, thank you again for joining us. You have anything you want to tell anybody about on the show? Anything upcoming?
Yeah, so got a nice State of the Flyers article. I think it was a good time to do it.
Sweet.
Holiday break comes out tomorrow. It's about 950 words, I'd say, maybe more. But a lot of good stuff in there. A lot of good stuff. A lot of honesty. A lot of truthfulness. So but I also want to correct myself. Sean Couturier played for Guy Boucher.
Okay.
Not John Cooper.
No.
And that's
both Tampa coaches, though.
Huh?
That's probably where the
both Tampa Bay coaches. That's why you mixed them up.
Guy Boucher, he gives a lot of praise for his game, and particularly his penalty killing expertise.
Well, Boucher, Jamey was a great defensive coach, so it makes sense why Coots is so good defensively.
Makes
I'm excited, Jamey, for your article, man. That sounds like
thanks, man. Yeah, I look forward to it. I don't think you could top your Morgan Frost piece, but it may come in around there.
That's okay. I think you'll one up me, Jamey. We're gonna have to one up each other throughout the rest of the season.
Nothing wrong with that. Vasili, what do you got going on?
Not too much. Probably have an article during the weekend at some point coming up for New Year's and stuff like that. So keep an eye out on that. And just want to say, obviously, thank you to all our listeners and supporters for checking out Flyers Nitty Gritty all the time and just reading all of our writers' work, because every single one of our writers does an amazing job, and we appreciate your guys' support.
You're the best.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for listening, for commenting, and just, sticking with us, sticking with the team. It's, it's a process, but again, I think it's still exciting. Like we're gonna have good stuff to talk about leading up to this off season. I can feel it.
Our draft stuff too is gonna be great with some of our guests.
Yeah, we'll bring Steve back on. I didn't want to hit him up over the holiday, but we're due. Yeah. Especially after, we'll probably get him on after the World Junior Championships. We'll wait for the tourney to go through and then get a prospect update as well.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you again. We went very long on this one, but thank you if you guys stuck with us all the way to the end. Please like, subscribe, share, comment, do the whole thing. All of it is very much appreciated. We love you very much. And remember, stay gritty.